Living alone felt like a milestone I'd earned. After years of roommates, thin walls, and never having a space that truly felt like mine, the small one, bedroom rental at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac felt perfect. Beige siding, a narrow porch, a single chair by the door. Nothing special, but it was peaceful. Silence became something I cherished. It meant safety. It meant control. That illusion shattered the first time my Ring doorbell alert went off at 3. I was drifting in and out of sleep when my phone buzzed on the nightstand. Half asleep, I assumed it was a raccoon or a stray cat triggering the motion sensor. Annoyed, I unlocked my phone and opened the app without thinking. A woman stood on my porch. She wasn't knocking or pacing. She wasn't looking at the camera. She simply stood there beneath the weak porch light, her body angled slightly toward the door. My stomach dropped when I realized why my chest felt tight. She looked exactly like me. Same height, same build, same shoulder-length brown hair. She was wearing the gray hoodie I had lost months ago and never found. Even the way she stood was familiar. Her right shoulder slumped slightly forward, the same way mine always was after work. I replayed the clip again and again, my hands shaking harder each time. I didn't sleep at all that night. The second night, she returned at the same time. 3:12 a.m. exactly. This time she stood closer, her face clearly visible in the camera's glow. Her expression was blank, almost peaceful. I tried to tell myself it was a coincidence, some strange trick of light or camera distortion, but deep down I knew that wasn't true. By the third night, she raised a finger to her lips. The silent gesture sent a bolt of panic through me. I called my neighbor, Mrs. Langley, a retired nurse who spent most of her time gardening or watching her security cameras. She insisted she hadn't seen anyone near my house. When I showed her the footage, she frowned and handed my phone back. "Honey, that looks like you," she said. "Your camera must be malfunctioning." I nodded, pretending to agree, but my gut twisted. She was there, and she wasn't going away. By the 5th night, exhaustion had set in. I sat on the couch with the lights on, phone in my lap, waiting for the alert. When it came, my heart slammed against my rib. She had stepped onto the porch stairs. Her lips were moving. I slowed the footage frame by frame. She wasn't muttering nonsense. She was repeating the same words silently over and over. From then on, I barely slept. Every sound in the house made me flinch. By the 10th night, she stood on the welcome mat, inches from the door. My instinct screamed to call the police, but something stopped me. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't a stalker. This felt purposeful. On the 11th night, I drifted before the alert. Before I could open it, I heard a soft creak inside my apartment. Someone was moving. I froze, barely breathing. Another step followed, slow and deliberate. Panic flooded my body as I crept toward the bathroom, every nerve screaming. The footsteps followed, unhurried, savoring the fear. I slammed the bathroom door and locked it, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would give me away. Then my phone buzzed again. The porch was empty at first. Then she stepped into the light. Her face filled the screen, and this time I understood her silent warning. "He's in the house." The doorknob rattled. I dropped my phone as the footsteps returned. When the bathroom door burst open, I lashed out blindly and ran. In the living room, my double stood between me and the intruder. The man behind her was tall and faceless in the shadow. She raised her hand. "Go," she whispered, "out the back." I didn't hesitate. I ran barefoot into the night, my heart hammering. When the police arrived later, the man was gone. The footage from that night was corrupted beyond recovery. But I know the truth. She wasn't a glitch. She wasn't a coincidence. She was a warning. The hardest part of being alone for the week would be adjusting to the silence. My husband had left for a work conference across the country, and our kids were staying with my sister until the weekend. For the first time in years, the house belonged only to me. No toys underfoot, no bedtime negotiations, no background noise. I welcomed it. That sense of peace lasted exactly 2 days. First thing I noticed was so small, I nearly ignored it. I walked into the dining room with my coffee and froze. One of the chairs sat slightly away from the table, pulled out just enough to be noticeable. It didn't make sense. I'm particular about small habits, especially when I'm alone. I pushed it back into place, telling myself I must have been distracted the night before. The next morning, another oddity caught my attention. The cabinet above the coffee maker hung open by a sliver. I stared at it longer than necessary. I always close cabinet doors, always. Then I noticed the TV remote lying upside down on the coffee table, buttons pressed against the wood. It felt deliberate, like someone had placed it that way on purpose. I laughed nervously and blamed my imagination. Silence has a way of amplifying things. By the 4th day, the unease settled deep in my chest. The cereal box was left open on the counter. The hallway light glowed even though I distinctly remembered turning it off. Worse than any of that was Luna. My old retriever had grown restless at night, pacing the halls and whining at corners of the house. Sometimes she'd stop and stare at wall, ears pinned back, tail tucked tight. I told myself she missed the kids, but the way her body tensed said otherwise. I started checking the locks obsessively. Front door, back door, garage, windows. I checked them twice, sometimes 3 times. Everything was always locked. That reassurance became my lifeline. On the 5th morning, I found the laundry. I'd fold the couch disturbed. The stack shifted just enough to be off. Luna couldn't reach it. Even if she could, she wouldn't have done it so carefully. A cold heaviness settled in my stomach. I tried to joke it away, but the feeling wouldn't leave. That night, Luna refused to settle. She paced in tight circles, whining softly, nudging her nose toward the bedroom door. Her fur stood on end. When I knelt to comfort her, her body trembled beneath my hand. Dogs, no thing. That terrified me more than anything else. I checked the locks again before bed, even though I knew they were secure. The house creaked, as it always did, but now every sound felt intentional, like movement. I must have fallen asleep at some point, because I woke to a faint clicking sound. Metal on metal. Soft, repetitive. Luna sat at the foot of the bed, completely rigid. Her eyes were locked on the wall behind the dresser. A low growl rumbled from her chest, deep and primal, nothing like her usual warning bark. "Luna?" I whispered. She didn't move. The clicking grew louder. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam landed on the dresser, then the wall behind it. That's when I noticed the vent. The screws looked wrong, uneven, loose. My heart slammed as I dragged the dresser aside. Dust scattered across the floor. The vent cover barely held on. When I touched it, it fell with a sharp clang. I shined the light into the duct. At first, there was only darkness. Then my eyes adjusted. Food wrappers, an empty water bottle, a crushed juice box, and farther back, stuffed into a bend in the duct, a dirty blanket. Someone had been sleeping there. I stumbled backward, barely able to breathe. A scraping sound echoed from inside the vent. Slow, deliberate. Someone was moving. Instinct took over. I ran. Luna followed close behind as I bolted through the house, nearly slipping as I threw the front door open. Cold air hit my face as I dialed 911 with shaking hand. The police arrived fast. They searched every room, every vent. The wrappers and blanket were gone, but the signs remained. Scuffed metal, disturbed dust, loosened screws. The detective listened carefully as I explained the small things I'd noticed. "That's how they test," he said quietly. They see what you'll notice. That thought made me sick. I stayed with my sister that night. I didn't sleep. The next day, I returned with officers to collect essentials. The house felt different, exposed. Every vent looked like an entrance. Every shadow felt occupied. In the living room, something new waited. On the coffee table sat one of my daughter's red crayons. We kept them in a drawer. She wasn't home. The detective bagged it, but the message was already burned into my mind. He had been there, and he knew I knew. I never slept in that house again. I wasn't afraid of staying in a hotel alone. If anything, I welcomed it. My apartment had flooded after a pipe burst, and the insurance company booked me into an extended stay hotel while repairs were underway. It was supposed to be a temporary inconvenience. Neutral walls, forgettable furniture, a place to sleep and work until life resumed. I told myself it was a pause, nothing more. I checked in on a Tuesday afternoon, rolling my suitcase down identical beige hallways that smelled faintly of cleaning solution and old carpet. The room was fine. Small, quiet, impersonal. Exactly what I needed. As part of the check-in process, the front desk mentioned the hotel's security system. Small fisheye cameras in each hallway, connected to an app guests good access, mostly for noise complaints or housekeeping schedules. I downloaded it, barely paying attention. The first 2 nights passed without incident. On the third night, just after 11 p.m, my phone vibrated on the nightstand. Elevator activated, hallway camera triggered. I frowned. Curious, more than concerned, I opened the app. The elevator doors slid open on my floor. No one stepped out. The doors stayed open far too long, like someone was standing just out of frame, holding them there. Then they closed. The hallway remained empty. No footsteps. No sound. The stillness unsettled me more than it should have. But I brushed it off and went to bed. The next evening, another alert came. Earlier this time. Same message. Same camera. The elevator opened again, empty. But just before the doors closed, I noticed someone at the far end of the hall. A woman stood completely still, facing toward the camera, toward my room. Her posture was rigid, almost unnatural, like she'd been frozen mid-step. I replayed the footage twice, my pulse picking up. She didn't move at all. I told myself she was another guest. Maybe she'd stopped to check her phone. Maybe she was waiting for someone. Still, the image followed me into sleep. The following morning, I mentioned it casually to the front desk clerk. He shrugged and blamed old sensors. "Those elevators act up," he said. "You're probably just catching weird timing." He didn't check the footage. That night, close to 1 a.m, the alert came again. This time, when the woman stepped into view, my breath caught. She wasn't at the end of the hallway anymore. She stood closer now, her face partially obscured by hair. She wore a gray hoodie, oversized, frayed at the cuffs, with a faint bleach stain on the sleeve. My hoodie, the one I'd lost months earlier. Her height, her build, even the way she stood, weight shifted slightly to one side. When she lifted her head, I felt sick. She looked exactly like me. I slammed my phone face down on the bed and didn't touch it again that night. I tried to rationalize it. Coincidence, doppelgangers, tricks of low-resolution footage. Hotels were full of strangers, but my hands shook long after I turned off the light. The next day, I asked again for someone to review the cameras. The clerk promised to pass it along. He didn't write anything down. That evening, the alert started earlier, just before 9 p.m. The elevator opened. The hallway looked empty until I realized she was already there, standing directly in front of my door, so close to the camera that only part of her face and shoulder were visible. Her head tilted slightly, as if listening through the door. I checked the peephole. Nothing. The hallway outside my room was empty. But on the camera, she stood inches away. At the end of the clip, Her lips moved. She was mouthing words I couldn't hear. I barely slept after that. The following night, the elevator lights flickered on the camera feed. The hallway camera stayed on, capturing the black interior like an open mouth. Something stepped out of it. Her movements were wrong, jerky, stiff, as if her body resisted motion. Her skin looked stretched, her eyes swollen. She wasn't just a copy anymore. She looked like a distorted version of me, worn thin. Each time the feed glitched, she was closer, jumping forward without walking, until her face filled the screen. Her mouth moved frantically. Then her expression changed, pure terror. She glanced over her shoulder, back toward the elevator. The feed cut out. I tried to leave the next morning. The hotel claimed my booking couldn't be refunded. They claimed no one else had access to my floor. They suggested stress. My last night came sooner than expected, at 6:12 p.m. In broad daylight, the alert buzzed. The elevator opened normally. Relief washed over me. Then a large hand shot out, stopping the doors. A man stepped into the hallway, tall, broad, moving with eerie calm. He didn't look at the camera. He walked straight toward my room. The feed snapped to static. My room phone didn't work. My cell had no signal. Then my phone screen flickered, and for half a second, the camera came back. She stood behind him, her face twisted in fear. She mouthed one word: "Run." The lights went out. I don't remember leaving the hotel. I remember waking up outside with staff around me. They said there was no outage. No man, no footage. I moved out that morning. Last night, back in my repaired apartment, my phone buzzed. Elevator activated, 4th floor. The video opened on its own. She stood alone in the hallway, wearing my clothes, my face. This time, the audio worked. "He's in your home.